people say that, well, you need to compromise on this issue. You need to come to our side a little bit, because if you can come just as far, we can get this bill passed, or we can get the president off our back, or we can do whatever. You have to stick to your principles, and where do your principles come from? Your morals and your character. And mine come from God and country and Constitution. So I think that the key is to not send somebody to Washington who believes in bipartisanship. You kind of need to go and say, well, these are my conservative principles. I've been campaigning on this, and I'm going to stick to it when I get to Washington. And if you guys don't like it, then don't ask me to be on your team. But I think that we're going to get a lot of principled people in Washington in 2010, and more in 2012. And if we can form a coalition of new people, we can change the way the rules work. We can make sure that the House is actually there to represent the people and not big money and lobbyists.
Next question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you talked about, and I hear a lot from all these people that are running for Congress about balancing the budget. One of the facts of the budget is it's 60% entitlements. Another fact is probably 10% interest. So that's 70% of the budget. Now that's you're not going to get to reducing the interest rate because the interest rates are going up. So the cost of the debt is going to go up.
Correct.
How are you going to address the entitlement problem? Because if you take what's left, the 30% that's left, probably what, a third of that is defense?
To about 20% is defense, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so there's not a lot to work with, and you have to get at the things which are causing the problems.
Right.
How do you intend to get at entitlements?
This is a great question. I'm very glad you asked this, actually, because I don't know how many of you are familiar with David Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States. He was Comptroller General under Clinton and under Bush for 4 years apiece, and has since left and started a foundation to educate people on how the entitlement programs are taking our country down. I mean, more or less. I mean, he'll give you more words that sound a lot better than that, but that's what it boils down to. I went and met with him at Rice University. He's actually a fraternity brother of my dad, and had a chance to sit down with him and say, well, listen, what would you do? What would you recommend? I mean, he was the chief accountant for the whole country. What would you do to make things better? He said, well, there's several things you could do. You've got to get in there and stop the entitlement from getting any bigger. And how do you do that? First is you go to the young guys like me that are just now starting our careers and say to them, you can't count on the federal government for your retirement. You can't count on them for your health care. You need to come up with something by the time you retire. So they've got 30 years of working, more or less, to be able to plan for that to be the case. I don't really want to trust the government for my health care or my retirement anyway. It's not that great. So first you stop the leak. Then you fix the flooding that you have. And how do you do that? You go and you start looking at fraud, waste, and abuse. You go and say, well, instead of 62, we might have to make it 65 for Social Security. You start treating back to where you can at least afford the program that you've already created, because you can't go to people and say, well, you know what, we promised all this and now it's just got to go, because you're going to create a firestorm that really can't be handled, because you're going to have all these people that counted on it and they don't have any money left. And I think that you could do that. I wouldn't want to see what the implications are. So my goal when I get in Congress and to fix these entitlements is, let's cut it for the young people now. And so that way our entitlement doesn't grow and grow, because like you said, it's an increasing interest rate financed by foreign countries that expect to be paid back. And so that debt gets more and more every year. And I believe it's by 2030, 30% of our budget will just be paying interest by 2030. So we need to stop that as soon as possible. And then we need to take a look at these programs and see, well, what can we manage to make it affordable year to year? And if we can make some good cuts in fraud, waste, and abuse, because there is a lot of that too, dead people getting Social Security, false insurance claims in Medicare, Medicaid, then what we can do is cut those costs down, get some of the taxes that are needed for that program gone, and give the money back to the people of the United States.
One last question. Yeah.
Oh, yes. You said earlier about if you don't vote in the primary, you can't run in the runoff?
No, you can't vote in the runoff.
Well, yeah, well, you actually can if you didn't participate in any other party primary.
Oh, the lady tonight told everybody that they were not able to vote again. And I said, well, I don't remember that, but if you said it and she's the chief of the elections, then
well,
I kind of trust her
if
opinion.
you don't vote at all,
then you're okay.
When you come up and come to a runoff, you can vote in it. But that is participating in the party.
a convention or a primary of
The
another.
political party for the
I
next
understand.
2 years.
Yeah, they told me they were going to stamp my voter card, so hopefully I'll be voting in
But
there.
another thing, what are you doing to confront Congressman Brady? Do you go up and like try to debate him on different things?
Well, we
or
are
confront him
actually-
with these things?
We've asked for 3 debates. He said no all 3 times until the Tea Party asked. And when the North Houston Tea Party now, formerly the Woodlands Tea Party, asked for a forum, and they're going to give each candidate time to speak, and then they're going to ask questions, suddenly Kevin Brady was interested. I guess it's because they have an audience of 10 to 12,000 people on their mailing list, and he didn't want to have somebody say, well, he didn't show up. So I'm very glad to have him come out. They actually scheduled around him, so he'll be in town, so he can't say, well, we had votes or whatever in the House, and they've been very nice to work with his schedule. February the 12th. I don't have the precise time yet, but I would expect that it's going to be somewhere around 7 o'clock.
Where is it gonna
Because he has
be?
to fly back. Pardon me?
Where will it be?
I don't have any of the details right now.
Oh.
The Tea Party called me day before yesterday to tell me that it would be on February the 12th. They contacted me last week for my schedule. So, but basically, my wife and I called them and said, why don't we have a debate, and why don't you call the incumbent out? And they said, well, we don't necessarily want to, do that. We don't want to necessarily stir it up. And then they said, well, you know what? It's kind of our job to stir it up a little bit. So they called them and got it to go. So I'm kind of excited about it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because every opportunity so far has been 4 minutes to talk to a group of people, and and then some questions and answers after, and that doesn't give me a chance to say, well, Kevin, what do you think? What were you doing here? Or it doesn't give somebody the chance to be mad at him and then have him respond to what he's done. So I'm very excited about having that opportunity on the 12th. And Alicio has also agreed to be there. I don't know if Scott has or not.
Thanks, Tyler.
No problem.